Добрый вечер, дорогие друзья. Мы приветствуем всех тех, кто только что присоединился к нам. Напоминаю вам, что сегодня у нас вечер современной британской литературы, и мы начинаем наше второе мероприятие совместно с культурным отделом посольства Великобритании. У нас в гостях рок-музыкант, ведущий музыкальный критик и писатель Дэвид Кинан. И встречу проведет не менее знаменательная фигура, музыкальный журналист, шеф-редактор раздела «Современная музыка» культовом Денис Бояринов. Встречайте, пожалуйста.
Спасибо. Я очень польщен, я, конечно, менее знаменательная фигура, но, тем не менее, здорово, что вы все сегодня здесь собрались в этот приятный, погожий московский вечер, не боялись хляби небесных. Рад приветствовать вас здесь, и давайте еще раз поприветствуем нашего сегодняшнего гостя, замечательного, я боюсь, что I think it's in English right now. Замечательного меломана, человек, который разбирается в музыке, и, собственно, с музыки он начал свой путь к литературе. Сейчас он уже находится в статусе известного британского писателя. И, собственно, про этот его путь достаточно интересный из андеграундной музыки, андеграундной культуры в, так сказать, на полке книжных магазинов. Мы об этом сегодня поговорим. Дэвид Кинан написал несколько книг, которые я очень люблю. В частности, первое мое знакомство с ним состоялось с книги «Angels Hidden Reverse», британское эзотерическое подполье. Может быть, кто-то из вас ее читал? Если поднимите руки, кто ее читал. Так, у нас не так много знатоков, как я предполагал. А кто не читал вообще какие-нибудь книги Дэвида Кинана? Пока не. Окей, тем лучше, тогда мы будем говорить с самого начала, и я надеюсь, что после нашей сегодняшней беседы вам захочется что-то еще прочесть и узнать. Тогда, Дэвид, рад приветствовать вас еще раз в Москве. Я тоже надену наушник, потому что Дэвид говорит на изумительном английском с шотландским акцентом, с таким прекрасным шотландским акцентом, что я не всегда его понимаю. Вот. Начнем с самого начала. Все-таки, что для вас раньше началось? Слова или музыка? С чего, так сказать, что вас первым захватило? Литература или музыка?
Words. Literature, definitely. I was kind of a geeky child, and I was very interested in sort of geeky things like astronomy. Science fiction, hugely into science fiction as a kid, and I fell in love with science fiction, and I fell in love with comic books, and I began to realise there was a subculture associated with science fiction and associated with comic books, and they would make fanzines, science fiction fanzines. And I think when I discovered that, my mind was kind of blown, because I was like, look, people can publish their own writing, like without permission? I was like, wow, that is amazing. And then, so I wasn't really into very cool music. I was into probably like heavy metal music, because I always wanted the most extreme music that I could get, and as a kid with not much access to anything but mainstream music, heavy metal seemed like the loudest. And also people who were into heavy metal tended to be into science fiction, tended to be into astronomy, so all this stuff came together. And then a friend of mine said, have you ever seen punk rock fanzines? And I was like, what? They were like, oh, it's the musical equivalent of science fiction fanzines and comics. People publish it themselves and they write about the music. So I fell in love at first with the actual fanzines. The smell of them, the DIY aspect, the wild language, the way they wrote about this music. So I read about the music before I heard the music. And so I had a fantasy in my head about what this music might sound like. So the words came first, and they made me sort of pursue the music and the culture from there.
А как назывался ваш первый фэнзин, который вы делали? И сколько было вам лет?
It was called Firm and Fruity, and I was 16 years old.
И какие группы вы там рецензировали? Вы говорите, что это было местами вы как-то опережали музыку, то есть вы не писали о музыке, не послушав ее, если я правильно понял?
Yeah. I mean, but then I would start going to concerts. I went to my first concert. My first concert was two Glasgow groups called the Pastels and the Vaselines, and this was like 1987. And I'd never been. I mean, I was like total geek, and I'd never been to a concert before, and so I didn't even know what concerts involved, and I had no friends that liked weird music. So I read this fanzine, and I was like, oh, these bands that I read about in the fanzine are playing a show in Glasgow. And so I said to my dad who was like a pre-rock and roll dad, he loved like Perry Como, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to this gig, and he was like, oh well, I was like, what's it like at a concert? And he was like, well, they all wear suits, and they sit at tables, and like, you know, you listen to music. So I got dressed up in like one of my dad's suits, and he drove me to the concert, and of course I walked in, and like, everyone looked like the fucking Ramones, you know, and I looked at this kind of old square, and like from that moment my mind was blown. I was like, fuck this, I'm never going to comb my hair ever again. And I haven't.
Когда возникла идея самому собрать группу? И что это была за группа, что за музыку вы играли? Это тоже был панк или это уже было что-то более сложное?
Well, early on I would make like weird cassettes, and the cassettes were like just like noise music. I didn't know how to play, so I had an electric guitar, and I would let it feedback, and then I would turn the radio to like random stations, and then I would play some weird avant-garde record in the background, and then I would like record it on cassette. Unfortunately, I ended up going to university, and I ended up meeting people there who could like play music, and I formed a band with them purely because they had good record collections, but it was and we began making this more like kind of indie music, which was never really what really appealed to me. And weirdly enough, we ended up getting signed to a record label called Creation Records, who famously, you must have heard of Oasis, the same label as them, and I was in a band touring with Oasis after making all this weird avant-garde stuff, just because the guys that I met, that was the type of music we were playing. But very quickly I was disillusioned with that. It wasn't the kind of music I wanted to make. So I made one record and I left. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I wanted to write about it more and I wanted to play music, you know.
Это вы рассказывали сейчас про группу 18 Wheeler, да?
Yeah. They were so bad. I mean, honestly, so fucking bad. Awful. Don't listen to them. It's not worth it. They're terrible. And I hate every single member of them for life. But it was a liberation. I knew what I did not want to do. I did not want to make weak-ass indie. You know what I mean?
И тогда вы организовали группу под названием Telstar Ponies. И тут уже как-то это была для вас та территория, на которой вы чувствовали себя комфортно.
Yes, I mean, I was always interested in improvised music and free music because I'm always very interested in the moment. How do we preserve the moment? How do we exist in the moment? Is it possible to really exist in the moment? And I discovered free music through psychedelic rock, through things like, you know, Grateful Dead, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Jefferson Airplane. I loved those groups because I loved the jam. I loved the way they would get into the free music. And so I had no idea how you made that kind of music. So my group, Telstar Ponies, was us trying to instantly like make music, instantly make songs, instantly just jam together and make that kind of music. And to me that was much more exciting, and I did enjoy that a lot more. Although ultimately I did come to realise that I was not really a musician and that it wasn't what I really wanted to do. Even with Telstar Ponies touring, I hate equipment. I like to be able to travel light. I hate amplifiers, I hate guitars, I hate saxophones, I hate bass, I hate fucking drums, I hate sound checks. I like a small bag jumping on the plane, you know what I mean? So very quickly I began to realise this isn't for me. And also, even though I was into free music, I'm just not really a collaborator. I just like to do things on my own, you know, which is what writers do. I like being lonely. I don't like other people around me. I like spending months or maybe years working on a solitary project. So all these experiences taught me that I wanted to be a writer, but also that I wanted to write about music. I preferred writing about music. People always say, you know, musicians are like, music journalists, are frustrated musicians. But I was a musician who was a frustrated music journalist. But also I thought it was important to play in bands, because I always think all these people who write about music that have never even tried to play it. Well, how the fuck do you know? How can you critique something that you have no idea how it's created? What nonsense. So I felt I'm going to school myself in being a band, not just in how to write songs, but going on tour, sleeping in the back of a van, all of this shit. So I was more capable of writing about it, you know?
А я думал, что вы пошли, так сказать, работать музыкальным журналистом, потому что вам нужно было заработать денег. И вот таким образом, причем я сделаю комментарий для тех, кто не знает, что Дэвид публиковался в одном из самых уважаемых и известных журналов, посвященных такой музыке не для всех, в журнале The Wire. Так, когда вы были журналистом The Wire, вам получалось зарабатывать деньги на жизнь?
Yes. I mean, I don't think I could probably do it now, but I think I was quite lucky in that I think I was kind of the last generation of like full-time rock critics. So I was full-time, but then I was writing for The Wire, Mojo, Melody Maker, NME, I had a jazz column at the Sunday Herald, I was writing constantly, non-stop. I was obsessed and possessed by minting this new language that could write about music. It became my thing. And I have to say The Wire especially was very important to me. To me, I read The Wire before I ever wrote for it, and to be honest with you, I never thought I was smart enough to be able to write for it. I would read it and I'd be like, oh, I'm never going to be intelligent enough to do this, but I love it. And then one day they fucking phoned me up and offered me a job after having read a piece I wrote in Melody Maker. And I'll never forget it. It was completely mind-blowing. I couldn't believe I was getting to write for The Wire. And not only that, honestly, it became a place of incredible freedom. I could write about what I wanted to. They let me get pretty stylistically out, and they let me write about a lot of extremely esoteric and left field shit over the period of like, how long did I write for The Wire? It was 20 years, you know? And I think it was what made me as a writer. I minted my own language by being given the freedom to invent a language about the music that I loved, that I felt did not betray it. Crucially, did not betray it. I was never a critic. I was never a critic, ever. I was an evangelist. That was my approach.
Для Wire вы сделали достаточно большое количество очень классных материалов. Вот какой из них для вас лично очень важен, для самого?
There are a couple of things. The first time I ever did a cover story for The Wire was a group called Nurse with Wound, which is a very solitary musician, Stephen Stapleton, did incredibly self-taught avant-garde music. I loved it. His music was so hermetic and strange and odd and challenging and lonely. And I think I was the first person ever to do a big piece, because he'd moved to Ireland, he'd become a recluse, he didn't do press anymore, and so that was a massive piece for me, and it was my first Wire cover, and it felt completely amazing, you know. I later did a piece called The New Weird America, which was all about new sort of experimental folk and avant-garde stuff coming up in the United States at the time. This must have been around about 2003, and again that was a really big piece for me, and this phrase, the new weird, has gone on to be used in a lot of different contexts, but that was a big piece for me, definitely.
Раз мы начали говорить о North Without, мы постепенно подобрались к вашей первой книге, нон-фикшн книги England's Hidden Rivers, посвященной британскому эзотерическому андеграунду, в том числе North Without. Скажите, правильно я понимаю, что вот в принципе до вас и до этой большой статьи про этих героев, а я имею в виду такие группы, как North Without, Coil, Дэвид Тибет и Карен 93, не особенно-то охотно писали журналисты, потому что просто сами музыканты им показались какими-то опасными людьми, по большому счету. не всегда психически уравновешенными.
Yeah, and that's definitely what attracted me to it in a way, because it seemed as very self-contained, esoteric, transgressive, challenging, highly personal music. And to me it was more than just about the music, because through groups like Coil, Curran and Nurse and White House is another very important group for me, they turned me on to so much alternative culture that I just was not aware of. And we all collaborated and they worked with each other, and it seemed this very self-contained scene. And I began to think, the title of my book is called England's Hidden Reverse, because I began to see this English reverse tradition where they were factoring in all these voices, all of these ideas that had been sort of marginalised, whether it was gay culture or sexually marginalised culture, whether it was artists that had been deemed mad or insane or had ended up in psychiatric facilities like Lil Wayne or Charles Sim, or these occultists like Aleister Crowley and Austin Osman Spare. So as I investigated these groups more, it became less of a musical history than a sort of alternate cultural history. And I like eccentric people. I am attracted to weirdos, and these people seem so extreme and so strange and so involved with areas that I found challenging and a little bit frightening even, that I was attracted to it so much that I wanted to meet these people and talk to them and sort of get to the bottom of it myself. So for me it was a sort of personal challenge. And the funny thing is, when I did meet a lot of these people, like John Balance and Peter Christopherson from Coil and William Bennett from White House, they were actually some of the nicest, friendliest, most down-to-earth people in so many ways, you know. And what I liked about it was that they experimented on themselves. They were constantly challenging themselves in their music and art, and that became a challenge for me, and a sense of permission, if you like, to experiment on yourself, to reinvent yourself. So it was an incredibly exciting time. I spent 5 years writing England's Hidden Reverse. I went and lived with all the various protagonists for periods of time, hundreds of hours of cassette interviews, getting to the bottom of this. And it was the first time this scene had ever really been articulated. So yeah, it was a very exciting time and an exciting project.
Что важно для меня, вот вы только что сказали о том, что когда вы пишете о музыке, вам важно не предать эту музыку, да? И вот здесь, конечно, когда пишешь о таком материале, как музыканты из британского эзотерического подполья, здесь много, конечно, таких моментов, которые в прессе называются желтыми, да? И вы очень корректно все это обошли, максимально корректно. Есть ли какие-то, так сказать, сцены, которые не вошли в первое издание, но, может быть, вошли сейчас во второе по каким-то причинам?
Well, I mean, I rewrote the introduction and I had that afterword as well, because I wanted a lot of this art is quite transgressive, and a lot of this art will use quite horrifying images and quite terrible things, and people would always talk about industrial music or post-punk as sort of using shock tactics, and I never saw it like that. I always thought, if we're going to be serious about art, we're going to have to discuss seriously some very difficult issues: violence, crime, war, murder, the animal instincts that we all wrestle with and deal with. How do we deal with that in art? Is the Holocaust. One of the things I think is people think that music or popular music is cheap. It's not serious. And so when they deal with something like the Holocaust, White House has famously an album called Buchenwald. And I think when people think, when popular culture deal with ideas like the Holocaust, it must be cheap. Or it must be idiotic, because after all, it's just popular music, and popular music is kind of cheap. Well, how can classical music deal with it? You know, Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima. Why is that serious when Buchenwald by White House isn't? You know, why is literature more able to deal with it? And I think it's because people think that music is a low art. So for what I tried to argue in my book, well, one, I tried to argue in my book that popular music can deal with these subjects, but two, one thing I wanted to discuss in my book was, I think sometimes you can aestheticize things like suffering, and that's a very difficult thing. And I think the music that people like Whitehouse or Mercer Wing made was such a horrifying music that it was kind of like, it did not betray the experience. The music itself was horrifying and difficult and refused interpretation. And I thought that's perhaps as close as we can get to dealing with these deep transgressive issues in a way. So when I come back to it, I want to more fully articulate that now, because I honestly think that the music I talked about in that book could not exist right now, because I think some of these themes and ideas are not allowed. They're not even been allowed to be dealt with, because people associate you personally with that. So it's kind of like, you write about the Holocaust, you must like the Holocaust. I mean, it's infantile. You know, people would accuse Whitehouse of having an album called Book and Roll where they must be Nazis. Well, I mean, does that mean everyone who's written a book about the Holocaust is a Nazi or likes the Holocaust? Or they had an album called Dedicated to Peter Curtin. Bold title, Peter Curtin, the mass murderer. Does that mean you like murder? Of course it fucking doesn't. You know what I mean? But how do we deal with these things? How do we go to the dark heart of humanity and deal with it? How do we deal with their essential, irredeemable animal natures and still somehow work it out through art? Art's the best way of doing that, but it's difficult. And it challenged me. So when I came back, I felt more and more I wanted to sort of articulate a little bit more and talk about why it is worthwhile talking about these things, you know what I mean? Without somehow being infected by them ourselves in some kind of way.
Неизвестно по какой причине, неизвестно для меня лично, но вот группа британского эзотерического подполья, Coil, Current 93, у них есть огромный, сильный такой культ в России именно. Да. И я даже удивлен, что не так много людей, которым известно название этой группы, название этой книги, сегодня присутствуют в зале. А что сейчас происходит с наследием этих групп в Великобритании? Вот современные молодые люди, вот вы, может быть, замечаете, как современная молодежь современным же группам свойственно как-то иногда полностью копировать, да, так сказать, находки старого, да, ну, то есть многие группы сейчас пытаются играть как Joy Division. Есть ли такие группы, которые пытаются делать что-то в духе Coil и Current 93 сейчас?
I think bands like Coil, Current 93, Whitehouse have kind of been pushed to the side at this point, because what they talk about is too problematic. And it's interesting because I think what's happened now in culture is that, for me, rock and roll was always transgressive. It was always uncomfortable. It was always difficult. It was always making you feel weird and challenged. But now everyone wants to be fucking Bono. Remember when Bono was uncool? Remember when playing Live Aid was uncool? Well, you know, I think morality has become the new transgression. And I think there's a sort of moral police force at the moment that won't even allow art to touch on these very difficult things, because they believe people who touch on it are somehow tainted by their interaction with it somehow. So I think these groups have kind of become persona non grata a little bit. There's no way a group like Whitehouse, who were a very, very confrontational and difficult group and confusing group, and I think some of the best art of the 20th century, I just don't think they could exist in this culture right now, because people will always want to call other people out for being bad. It's like a new Gnosticism. Everyone's bad. They're pointing to who's evil. You're evil. You're evil. You said that. That's evil. You know what I mean? So where do we go with this? I'm waiting for punk rock to be cancelled. Because when you listen to Sex Pistols, there's some difficult songs in there. Holidays in the Sun, Bodies. You have Iggy Pop and Ron Ashton from the Stooges with swastikas on and stuff like that. Why is that not all cancelled? You know? So I just think that the legacy, the times we're going through are censorious and overly moralistic, and it's very difficult for that type of art to exist anymore. All art these days must have a redeeming social function, which is just, that's not rock and roll, I'm afraid. You know what I mean? I was doing an interview recently, and somebody said, do you think it's important for rock and roll to save the world? And I was like, one, the world doesn't need saved. Two, rock and roll is the last thing to do that. What rock and roll needs to do is strip its top off, smear itself in peanut butter, and dive head first into a circle of Hell's Angels from the stage. That's what rock and roll needs to do right now.
После значит, британского исторического подполья вы обратились к художественной литературе, и это была как бы неожиданная вроде бы трансформация для музыкального журналиста. Вот интересно, объясните, пожалуйста, почему вдруг вы решили поменять, так сказать, поле игры?
I always knew that I would write fiction, and it was always my dream. I always knew my first book would be about the town I grew up in, Airdrie, small working class, regarded as a shithole, regarded as an awful town. But I had an incredible experience growing up. I had the most fun childhood there. To me, it was magical. I grew up during the post-punk years. Airdrie at that time, it was electrified. You know, you'd walk down the street, you'd see these incredible looking characters, looking like Iggy Pop, silver leggings on, no top, makeup, in Airdrie. That was dangerous in Airdrie. So these people sort of became martyrs for me. And I always wanted to write. Again, I was going back to how I was always more interested in words and writing than music. I read, when I was 17 years old, I read a music critic called Lester Bangs. You might have heard of him. He appears in a movie called Almost Famous by Cameron Crowe. He doesn't appear in it, someone plays him. But I read his book, a collection of his writings, and honestly it blew my mind because it brought everything together that I loved, which was literature and rock and roll. And when I read his writing, I liked his writing as much as I liked the music he wrote about. I like his writing about Lou Reed as much as I like Lou Reed's records. And more I came to, what I wanted to do was, I liked music because I liked the sensuality of music. I liked the tactile aspect of music. I liked the way it became body. And I was very wary of words, that words can be used to the point where they're unembodied, they're completely abstract, and we go down this endless sort of echoing idea of words. I think that's where a lot of religion and spirituality comes from, actually, from words, from being lost in words, and coming to and getting involved with sort of disincarnate entities rather than the body. So I began to say, how can you write a book? How could you write in a way that preserves the tactile, physical body aspect of experience, but still is in words? And that's what rock writing taught me, because rock writing, to me, is about a transference of energy, the feel, the electric, the excitement of music. How do you capture that in words? I'm a big fan of poetry. I don't really write poetry myself because I want it to remain impenetrable. I want it to remain a mystery. It's not an art form I'm ever going to partake in, but I love it. And I love the imagists, like HD, the poet Ezra Pound. I love their idea, because their whole idea was, how do you literally transmit an image intact, a thing? How can you transmit a thing using language? So I became obsessed with that idea. How do you transmit a thing? Music, how do you get that energy? So I began writing this book, and I began writing it with the energy that I'd got from writing about music. Transmitting the energy of music, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted specifically to talk about this time, post-punk, when I was growing up. Because for me, how do you tell the true story of post-punk? For me, the true story of post-punk are the people that never made a record, or made one cassette, or played one gig, or put on one concert, or published a fanzine once, like me. So I thought, the true story of post-punk, by its nature, has to be fictional, because that gets closer to the truth. So I thought, I want to invent a fictional music scene that didn't exist, but that could have existed. But then I want to push it as hard as I possibly can, because I felt at the time growing up in Airdrie that anything was possible under post-punk. It felt like the very rules of physics were up for change. So I wrote it in a sort of magical realist style, which I thought got closer to the potential, the possibilities of those times. But another thing I did was I wrote it as if it was real. So it's interviews with lots of different people from the time, remembering what they did. But not only that, in the background there's 4 appendices, including an index, including a character list. And in the list at the back, you can actually find out where everything in this book took place in Airdrie. You can go as a pilgrim and visit these places, where in reality nothing happened, but in terms of psychic truth, you get closer to the reality of what did happen by going to these places where things didn't happen. And so I was kind of blown away by the power of fiction to do that. And so I always vowed my first book would be a love letter to growing up, a love letter to small towns, and a love letter to the potential of what can happen when you encounter art, and it transforms where you are completely. I talked about the now, the moment. And one of my big interests in music is music can put you in the moment, and music can transport you back to those moments when you fell in love, those moments when you went to that first gig, those moments when you realised your own potential, those moments when art turned your life around. And so what I wanted to have in memorial device, the book itself is a memorial device, a way of remembering, a way of preserving the moment, the time, the now. And what happens is a lot of these people have been interviewed years after the supposed music scene they were involved in went down. And they're starting to have this incredible realisation. They're kind of like, wow, okay, so no one cared about what we did. We were never written about in the NME. We never put out a record. But you know what? It was special and important and beautiful. We were believers. And for a moment in time, we were right there in the centre of the world. So one of the big questions I'm fascinated by, and it comes out of music, and I write about in all my books in a way, is, can you be present in the moment? Can you see the significance in the moment as it is passing? Is it possible? The main character in Memorial Device, the singer, suffers from a thing called water on the brain, which means he has trouble retaining long-term memory. In other words, he's always there. He sort of enters every moment out of no history in a way. And for me, that's what music has always done for me. And when I listen to some of my favourite music from the time, I'm right back in that moment. And it makes me realise how significant it was. There's a beautiful lyric by Prince, which I always go back to. It's on his album Parade. It's from a song called Sometimes It Snows in April. And he says, he's got a line, and he says something like, and love just isn't love until it's past. And that song always makes me cry, and it's so beautiful, and I want to believe it's not true. Can love be now in the moment? Can we be aware of that in the moment? It's the big challenge. It's the big challenge of the book, the Memorial Device, and it's the thing that moves me most in terms of writing about it, and it came from my love of music. And remembering all these weird characters I grew up with, and how special and strange they were, and could we have known that at the time? You know?
Я поясню для людей, кто не читали книгу, что действительно книга This is Memorial Device, она постоянно обманывает читателя, потому что она построена как действительно документальная такая проза, то есть это реально существующая, как будто бы реально существующая группа из города Эрдери, в которой родился Дэвид Кинан. И люди, имевшие отношение к этой сцене, к этой культуре, к этой группе, вспоминают о том, как это было. И, то есть она построена абсолютно как документальный роман, но при этом, да, она бесконечно обманывает твои ожидания, в какой-то момент реальность как будто бы расползается перед тобой. Но при этом мне интересно, как человеку, который знает в том числе и реальную культуру, историю постпанк-групп британских, мне показалось, что здесь есть такие пасхальные яйца, да, отсылки к реальным историям реально существовавших групп. Ну, кое-где, мне кажется, очевидно, есть намеки на Joy Division, в частности. Это так, или это все совсем полная фантазия и все совпадения случайны?
You're wrong. It's completely accidental. I mean, honestly, well, it's funny because recently Stephen Morris, the drummer from Joy Division and New Order, he picked that book on Radio 4 as his book of the month, and he talked about it, and he said he recognised a lot of the characters in it, which of course is great because I want it to be real, and I recognise these characters too, and I do reference Joy Division, and when I think about it now, probably Joy Division are one of the groups that probably sound the closest to what Memorial Device will probably write. But at the time, honestly, I was not consciously trying to do any of that at all. I have a rule when I write fiction, when I write my novels, in that I never, ever research. Never research, because I think research gets in the way of inventing. If you're a fiction writer, if you're writing non-fiction, well, you better research the shit out of it because someone's going to pull you up and say that's nonsense. But I'm always closer to the psychic truth of the times. And I actually think you can get closer to history through fiction than you can through a dry, sort of a non-fictional telling of the facts. So I'm always true to the fictional side of it much more than the research side of it. So no, there was no deliberate reference to any of that stuff, but I think a lot of people in bands went through the same kind of shit and met the same kind of people and we had the same kind of incidents, so it makes a lot of sense to me. But I meet people all the time who tell me that book's true. And this is one of the uncanny things about art, that art actually, in my experience, has the capacity to rewrite the past. So you need to be very, it really, really can. People will say to me that they know characters from that book. People have said to me, Patty from Memorial Device, I knew that guy. They were like, you got it right. You said he lived on South Bridge Street in Airdrie. You're like, he did. But you were wrong, he didn't live in a apartment, he lived in a wee cottage. And I'm like, mate, I made that up. But they're completely convinced that it's accurate. But I love that. It means that I tapped onto something, and that's why I don't research, because I think I get closer to the truth through that kind of fantasy,
Есть одна милая деталь, милая для каждого русскоязычного читателя, вот в книжке «Известным» Device, вот эти молодые панки, постпанки, значит, у них есть правило, они встречаются в парке и каждую неделю обсуждают русскую литературу, какую-нибудь русскую повесть или роман русского писателя, который они до этого прочитали, обсуждали Чехова. У них есть любимый перевод Михаила Булгакова, они точно знают, что в каком переводе на английский язык его надо читать, в каком нет. Откуда взялась эта деталь? И каково ваше отношение с русской литературой?
Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Russian literature. I love Dostoevsky, particularly Notes from Underground. I love that. In fact, in a different chapter in Memorial Device, somebody actually quotes the opening lines from Notes from Underground. What is that? I am a sick man, I am a diseased man. I can't remember. I believe my liver is diseased. The first couple of lines from Notes from Underground. And I love Dostoevsky's idea of the underground man. That's kind of the post-punk man. You know what I mean? That's kind of the DIY man, the underground man. You know what I mean? And I love that idea, and I want to roll with that a little bit. But also, what I like about Russian literature, and why me and my friends were so into it at the time, was its kind of degree of seriousness. It's like taking shit seriously, debating. And that's kind of what we did in the 80s. We sat around debating every fucking topic under the sun, like our lives depended on it. And we made music like our lives depended on it. And my favourite Russian writers write like their lives depended on it. It seemed to be a Russian thing, and again, I've never been to Russia. I did more research, but the psychic truth of that, there's a reason why all my pals were into Russian writers, because of the degree of seriousness. And in a way, that's what happened with post-punk. Even in working class towns, even in cultureless towns, there were bands of kids taking culture seriously, thinking that culture really did have potentially a transformative aspect in their lives. And honestly, I feel that moment is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. If you go to the town Airdrie, I'm not going to advise it at this point, but if you go and check it out, you could check out all the locations where these things took place, but you'll find it's a cultural fucking desert. There's no one in the streets anymore who looks like Iggy Pop. Everyone just wears fucking tracksuit bottoms and a pair of trainers, you know what I mean? Most people are indoors on the internet or on their phone. This culture of the streets, this sort of dynamic transformation of working class culture, a working class avant-garde in a way, which was what was taking place in the 80s, it's gone now. But for a moment, even in these small towns, we took culture seriously, and we were brave enough to live our lives according to the demands that culture made of us. To me, that's a fucking Russian novel right there.
Клево, спасибо. После This Memorial Device у вас вышла книга For the Good Times, и кажется, что вы здесь обращаетесь к совершенно другой теме. Да? Здесь вообще минимум музыки, здесь этот сложный, проклятый вопрос, Ирландия, Шотландия, католики, протестанты, Ирландская республиканская армия. Хотя, на самом деле, Ирландская республиканская армия у вас появляется и в первой книге, в The Memorial Device. Почему вам так близка эта тема? У вас наверняка ирландские корни какие-то есть, как я понимаю, да?
Yes, I mean, when I said at the start, I always knew my first book would be about Airdrie and a love letter to what people think of as a difficult, rough town. I always knew my second book would be about the IRA and would be set in Belfast. My father was born in the Ardoyne. The Ardoyne is a small, predominantly Catholic working class estate in North Belfast that was the epicentre of what they call the Troubles in Belfast from the 60s till the 90s. Basically a sectarian civil war supported by the British government and the British Army. And the Ardoyne was under siege for a long, literally under siege for a long period of time. And I'd say most of the people who lived in the Ardoyne became radicalised and were very staunch Republicans and probably supporters of the Irish Republican Army at the time. My father was one of them, but my father left Ireland to get away, to escape the violence and to start a new life. He met my mother, who was Scottish, and they moved to Glasgow. And eventually moved to Airdrie. But the rest of the family stayed, they remained in Belfast, and they stayed in the centre of this war zone. So as I was growing up, I'd hear from my uncles and my cousins on a regular basis the absolute crazy shit that was going on. People being burned out of their houses, one of my cousins being shot by the UVF, my aunt suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, as if she was living in a war zone, which she basically was. And these guys would come over and stay with us to get away from the Troubles. And when they came over, we had a secret annex, a secret loft with a bookcase in front of it that they would stay in when they were on the run. And me and my brother were just young kids, and we'd get locked in with them. And we would look up at them in awe, these people that were living these incredible lives. And to be honest with you, the way I dress and stuff is kind of inspired by these guys, because they'd always be wearing suits and they'd have rings on and loads of chains, and they'd be smoking like 20 fags in an hour, and they'd teach you how to throw a punch, and they were tough. But also, they were all, it's so funny that I can't think of the word. What is the word for when you don't know how to read or write? It's funny that I can't remember that word, because that just... Illiterate! That is so amazing that I'm so illiterate I can't even fucking remember how to say illiterate. But my dad's family were all illiterate, they couldn't read or write, and yet they had such faith in language. A faith in language to the point that it was almost as if their telling of stories could redeem their own suffering. Which even as a kid I started to realise. I was like, fucking hell, these guys can't read or write, but they have such a belief, more of a belief in language than most writers I know, actually, more of a faith in language. So they would tell these stories, and they would compete to tell the most horrific story in the funniest, wildest way possible, laughing about getting shot in the arse with a rubber bullet, all this kind of stuff. And their language was amazing. So I was like, you know what? One day I'm going to write this story, and I'm going to try and capture the incredible language of these people who were essentially yet illiterate, inarticulate, but who could tell a story in the best way possible. I wanted to do that. And also, as I was growing up, so my dad, like his brothers, could not read or write. He couldn't read or write. But he always wanted me to get an education. He always said it was important. And he would always say to me, you need to read. You need to read as much as possible. And I would be like, well, how the fuck does he know? You know what I mean? But then I had this incredible revelation. I thought to myself, my God, what must my father think books are like? He must really think that if you read a book, it blows your mind apart so incredibly that it changes your life. And I began to think, you know what? If my father could read most books, he would be really disappointed. Because most books are never going to blow your mind apart or change your life or capture that energy or language that he believed was in books. So right then, I made the vow that one day I would write that book, but I made a life vow for myself as an author that I wanted to write the kind of books that would live up to an illiterate person's fantasy of them. So that's what I've tried to do with Memorial Device, and perhaps even more self-consciously with For the Good Times.
Когда вы пишете книги, как вы используете музыку, например? Возможно ли писать под музыку? Создает ли это вам настроение? Или, напротив, вы отключаете все возможные источники? Или какая-то должна быть музыка, чтобы вас погрузить, может быть, в какое-то состояние, для того, чтобы начать писать?
No, I never, ever have writing playing when I'm writing. I listen to a lot of music, but I listen to music when I'm chilling or after I've written. When I'm writing, I have a certain series of rituals, but none of them involve music. But music is a very big influence on my writing, because one of the things I think that influenced me and I think was good, I talked about my music writing and how that perhaps informed me as a novelist, but one of the things I think that was a big influence on me was when you interview people. Well, back in the day I had like a little Walkman, a little sort of Sony Walkman that I would record interviews on. So I was always transcribing cassettes, and sometimes I would do like 3-hour marathon interviews. So you'd be I hated it because I was like, oh, fuck this, man, I've got to transcribe 3 hours. But I was obsessive because I wanted to have an archive, so I would transcribe every word of every single cassette. But then I began to realise, wow, everyone talks in such a different way, and everyone has their own rhythm of speaking. So one of the big things that informed me, there's a lot of dialogue in my books, and I love conversation. I love inventive dialogue. I love hearing the back and forth of conversation. So I began to get in this idea of rhythm, that that you can express character through rhythm. I'm not into all that amateur shit where you talk about the sky with such and such and you describe a person, their hair, their blah blah blah, or you use loads of adverbs. To me that's really amateurish. That's the sort of thing you get taught at like a fucking fiction workshop or something. I think you much more communicate people's personalities through the rhythm of their talk and how they move. How they move, how they walk down the street, how people talk, is how they carry themselves. So this was a big thing for me. So when I'm writing, music would short circuit that. It would get in the way of the rhythms of the people that I'm trying to evoke. So I write in silence. And then what I do is I read back. I always read back out loud, again and again and again. I write something, end of the night, I crack open my drink, and I reread out loud everything that I've written, and I go back and again and I knock it, and I want to get the rhythms totally right. And again, I think it's a thing that comes from poetry. I'm not as self-conscious as someone like William Carlos Williams, who talks about syllabic, the syllables in a line, but I do like people like Charles Olson or Robert Duncan, poets, who talk about, it's not so much the syllable, but it's sort of little sort of I'm not sure the word would be, little agglomerations of force somehow in the words, and these forces need to somehow work rhythmically together somehow to sort of become to speak. And my big thing as well is that I believe that books can come alive, that books are alive, that you can give a book an actual life, because I'm very interested in theology, I'm very interested in religion, I'm very interested in Judaism, I'm very interested in Kabbalah, because I'm interested in the power of words to make things come alive. And there's this idea, this Kabbalistic idea of the golem, which is the idea that you can build something from clay, from base materials, words even, whatever, ideas, experience, raw experience, base material. And what happens to the golem is they build this thing out of clay, and then they inscribe some Hebrew letters on the back of its neck, and the Hebrew letters makes it come alive. And I was like, wait, we're onto something here. That language can somehow give birth to life. And then I'm a huge fan of the writer William Burroughs. I think his books are uncanny, almost religious, spiritual texts, in that his books are fucking alive. They're alive. And when you reread them at different points in your life, it's like this organism has grown since the last time I was in here. And I was particularly obsessed by a book called Cities of the Red Night. And I had this mind-blowing revelation one night, because I sit and think about Burroughs a lot, and I thought, what the fuck is that title? Cities of the Red Night. And I had this moment of epiphany. The cities of the Red Night are the internal organs. What an idea. And I began to think, that's why his book seems alive. So when I wrote Memorial Device, there's like loads of characters in it. There's maybe like 70 characters in this or something. And it was hard to keep track of them all. So I had a plan, a graph, and the graph was a body. I did a shape of a body. and for the central internal organs of the main characters. So then I created veins and bloodstreams, and then I had other characters that would pass through via the arteries, into and through the cities of the Red Knight. And I began to feel the book come alive. And I began to feel that it was an organism. And I began to feel I'm onto something here. So that's why when people say to me, that book's real, or that actually happened, or I knew that guy, I'm like, I know. It is fucking real. And it's out of my control too. When I was writing this book, and when I was writing For the Good Times, these characters would behave in ways that I was sometimes appalled by. I was like, wait, what the fuck are you doing? To some of the characters. Or I was like, why did you say that? Or in For the Good Times, one of my main characters gets murdered a third of the way through. And I was like, oh shit. I didn't realise he was going to get killed. What the fuck is going to happen now? But I had to go with it. I had to let my characters behave. Because there's this other idea that people teach you as a writer. And I'm a self-taught writer. So I've come to these things through writing books. One of the things that's been amazing for me is I always hear this thing in terms of creative writing, is that even if your characters don't understand their motivation, you should. Because you're the omnipotent writer in charge of it all. And I'm like, well, fuck that. Because that means you're just a puppet master. And you're just fucking pulling these characters left and right. I'm like, no, these characters are alive. And they need to be allowed to go out and do their own shit. There's a girl in this Memorial Device called Mary Hannah. She plays bass for Memorial Device. But she doesn't really show up in the book. She's always in the distance. And you know what? I'm totally crushed out on her. I'm in love with Mary Hannah. And I kept wanting her to step into the foreground. I was like, when are we going to find out more about Mary? But she never showed up. But then I'm writing this book. It's a book that's going to come out in a couple of years' time called Monument Maker. And at one point in Monument Maker, this guy meets this woman who's making sculpture. She's making sculptures. And he walks into her garage and she's showing him this sculpture. And I had this amazing moment of epiphany. I was like, and I was almost like I was walking into the garage with him. And as I opened the garage door, I was writing it. I looked at her and I was like, oh my God, it's Mary Hannah. It's Mary Hannah who made that fucking sculpture. She's back. I'm getting to see her again. And as is her nature, she didn't hang around. I think I maybe got 5,000 words out of a 250,000 word novel where she hung out for a bit and then she disappeared again. But it's incredible. And the experience for me has been like magic. It has been, these characters are alive and you can't just summon them. They turn up when they want to and they behave how they want to. And for me, I was like, no one told me writing a book was like this. It's like fucking magic. It's amazing. It's like, but it's also like demonic possession. Because when you're writing one of these books, one of the things they say about madness is you've got voices in your head. Well, when I was writing Memorial Device, I had 70 voices in my head all the fucking time that never stopped. I felt kind of insane, you know? And if you're a magician and you conjure a demon, you've got this thing called banishing rituals, like the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, where you do this thing, you know, which gets rid of the demon at the end of the working. But writers don't fucking have that, man. You know, writers need banishing rituals, and that's been a thing for me. I'm still trying to work out how you banish a book and move on. It's difficult, because you feel as if you're in a state of constant possession.
Когда вы делали музыку, играли музыку, к сожалению, я так понимаю, что вы сейчас уже отошли от этого и полностью посвятили себя писательству. Но вы были как бы в андеграунде, да, в абсолютном андеграунде, и причем я так понимаю, что все глубже и глубже уходили в экспериментальную музыку, в импровизацию, да, в спонтанность. Это то, что не нужно на большой сцене. Сейчас как писатель, понятно, что писатели пишут для того, чтобы книги покупали. Вот как вы себя оцениваете в контексте вообще современной британской литературы современной? Вы где находитесь? В какой точке? Вы андеграунд, вы мейнстрим или вы ни то, ни другое?
It's an interesting question because I never really sit down and self-consciously think about where I am or what I'm really doing too much. You know, I don't want to stumble or get too self-conscious about it or anything like that, but I'd like to think I'm a voice from the underground that somehow, against all the fucking odds, has ended up publishing in the mainstream. you know. But for me, I ran a record shop for a long time, and I've championed, as you say, very extreme, very left field, very experimental, very marginalised music and art. And my whole modus operandi for doing that was to try and find them or create a platform for them in the mainstream, so that these voices could be added to the going on conversation, so that we could hear more from these people, so we could enliven culture a wee bit more, you know? So I'd like to think perhaps I'm in the tradition of what I've championed myself. And to be honest with you, I think there's a long and venerable literary tradition of DIY, avant-garde self-publishing, because when you're writing radical fiction that doesn't have a place at first, you have to privately publish. You know, you even think about things like Ulysses, James Joyce, having to basically be privately published at first, before the culture was ready to somehow assimilate it or even deal with it. And that's where I come from, DIY, avant-garde culture. The fact that I found a place, I mean, it's incredibly fortuitous. I was very lucky to meet, my books came out on Faber and Faber, which for me was an incredible thing. I couldn't believe that I was writing books now, because I was so aware of Faber as an incredible publisher who published so many great stuff. But my editor was a guy called Lee Brackstone, who also felt the same, who I didn't know, but when I met him I realised we had so much in common. He's another champion of left field art and music, and we met, it was the right place at the right time, and the editorial relationship I had was what I dreamt of. I wrote in isolation for 10 years before I ever published a novel. I wrote 6 novels that no one ever read before anyone ever published one. I didn't know how to get published, I had no idea, and I thought it was more important to do the work than search out an agent and find out how to get published. And my faith was paid back, because when the moment was right, I met the ideal editor for me, and I found the ideal publisher, and things came together. But I like to think I'm still a radical voice, and I'm still someone who's writing about extreme left field stuff, but happens to be lucky enough to have a mainstream platform, and also to be able to do it full time, which is an incredible thing, and I still feel very blessed, and I don't take it for granted. My dreams, I mean, honestly, my dreams came true. I always wanted to be a writer, to write uncompromising literary fiction, and have a publisher and an editor that would support me in doing that, and to do nothing else. And amazingly that happened for me. And I don't take it for granted, and I'm completely grateful for the way things have worked out.
Спасибо большое, спасибо, Дэвид. И я думаю, что на этом мы можем обратиться к аудитории. Если у вас в зале у кого-то есть вопросы, самое время их задать.
I mean, you really can't ask me anything at all. I mean, someone wants to ask something up the back, yeah?
Вот робкие руки я вижу, да. Вы, может, поднимайте выше, не стесняйтесь.
Скажите, пожалуйста, если вы пишете в одиночестве, то как проводите свободное время? Кто у вас друзья? И в чем вы видите вдохновение? И есть ли у вас вектор направления? Куда идете дальше? Спасибо.
Yeah, good question. My routine sort of changes. It's kind of weird, because when you become a full-time writer, there's suddenly, what the fuck do you do outside of writing? And one thing I've realised is that you can't write 8 hours a day. You know, because 1, it's going to become rubbish. 2, you're going to squeeze your brain. So I take it really easy. I get up in the morning, I make myself a pot of tea, and I read for 2 to 3 hours every morning, always reading. I then write, sometimes for like an hour, sometimes for 4 hours. If I write even 300 words that I'm happy with, I'll pack it in for the day. The rest of my day is probably to do with gardening. I have a garden, I built a hut. I love to go there, completely step off the map, completely not engage with the literary world or anything like that. And I hang out with a bunch of old guys who are all retired except me. So I live like a retiree. You know, we just go up and talk about our vegetable patch and shit like that, you know. And then I like to cook. I cook a meal every night, and then after I cook dinner, I normally go through and I sit down and I revise and edit everything that I've been writing that day. And that's kind of what my days are like when I'm kind of at home. What do I see things happening in the future? Well, you know, I write like a maniac. I've just I've just had a 2-book deal for my next 2 books. So I'll have a new novel out next summer and a new novel out the summer after that, which is kind of a frightening thing because you're like, well, you know what you're going to be doing for the next few years. But I'm a big fan of Rimbaud, the poet Arthur Rimbaud, and I think probably he's the most successful writer of all time. Why? Because he cured himself of writing at a very early age and he walked off into life. And I hope, and what I want to do, is I want to cure myself of writing. And at one point, I want to be able to say, I've written myself out of art and into life, and then I would like to disappear. And I hope I can do that. Thanks.
Вопросов стало больше.
Вот вопрос здесь. Вы сказали, что вы 3-4 часа утром читаете. Вот что вы читаете? И современную английскую прозу или классику? И имеете ли вы представление о современной русской прозе? Спасибо.
You know, honestly, I don't read a lot of contemporary fiction. I only really started reading contemporary fiction when I started getting published because I began meeting authors. And like liking them and thinking, oh, I'll read their book and stuff like that. But there's so many like classics and older books, and I love 20th century modernism. I would rather read a bad 20th century modernist novel rather than anything else, because I love the overarching ambition of it, even when it's failing, and I love the seriousness of it. So I like to read any mad, obscure 20th century modernist that I've not read, I will read. I read a lot of theology. I'm interested in theology. I read a lot about spirituality, history of religions. I'm very interested in church architecture. I'm very interested in Romanesque sculpture, Gothic cathedrals. These are just weird, eccentric subjects that interest me. I read a lot about that. And I know barely nothing about contemporary Russian literature. I don't know a lot about contemporary UK literature. But I'm catching up, and I'm finding there is a lot of interesting stuff there. But I've got such a back catalogue to read, I've got to stagger it with other stuff as well, you know. There's just not enough time to read. There's not enough time, and sometimes I panic that there's so many great books that I know I should read. And then I think, what's the point? It's not as if I can download my brain when I die and everyone else can check it out, you know. So again, maybe I'll cure myself of reading at some point also. 2 in the front row, yep.
What do you think of the future, the perspectives of British underground in general?
You mean musically or literature or art? I don't really know if there is an underground anymore in terms of that, to be honest with you. And that's not a criticism, but I think things have changed so radically with the advent of the internet. And the sort of new connectivity, and one thing that I think is lacking and that we've lost, and that one of my book Memorial Device is a little bit about, is the idea of the quest. Because one of the things I say in the book is it's not really just about the music. Because one of the things about when I was my age and I was searching out records, there wasn't a lot of information. You couldn't just Google an artist and immediately get their entire biography, their entire discography, what's their best record, blah, blah, blah. You had to find out for yourself, which involved, for me, going to a large town, getting on the train, going to Glasgow, going into a record shop with these cool guys who look down on you because you're just a dumb kid, trying to buy a record, then going home with your pals, listening to it like crazy, like it was this event, not just Spotify in the background on shuffle play, but an event, taking it seriously, then going to a concert and getting dressed for it, meeting other people at the concert. The quest, they were all parts of interacting with the art. And for me, that's still what thrills me. And so when new music comes up and it's like, we've got a Bandcamp, we're on SoundCloud, you can listen to us on Spotify, there's something about me, I just don't care as much. I want to search out the new weird shit. I want to see the stuff that's off the map, always, you know? But it's hard to be underground, because everyone's got their profile. You know, everyone's online, everyone's got their website or their Twitter profile and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not saying there's not a future for interesting art, but I just don't see, there's no, how do you be underground? How do you exist off the radar? Everyone's on the radar. Even the weirdest, most dysfunctional music is, you can contact them somehow, you know? So, I think people will always make art. There's always weird people. There's always people who experience the world uniquely and who want to articulate it somehow, and I love that. But in terms of it being an underground culture anymore, or even a rock and roll culture, I think that's a 20th century phenomenon that we might be coming to the end of. Yep.
Общаетесь ли вы сейчас с кем-то из музыкантов подполья? Если да, то с кем?
Мне кажется, имеется в виду Coil, Карен 93.
Well, I mean, Coil are dead. Peter and Bowen died, you know. No, I don't. Another thing is, when I finish a project, I have a scorched earth policy. I almost destroy my entire archive, or I get rid of it, I disperse it, and I move on completely. And I was so immersed in that world for years that I kind of took a step away from it to a certain degree. And also, when I ran a record shop and I was involved in underground culture, I was involved in it so intently for almost like 2 decades that when I started writing my book, I sort of had a clean slate. And also, I quite like not keeping up with music anymore. I like not having the pressure, and I like discovering other things that I never had time to discover at the time. You know what I mean? Like listening to dub reggae. You know, that's something I would never did at the time or had time to, or stuff like that. You know? So I don't keep up, and I like the pressure of not keeping up. In fact, I have become a little bit more underground. I'm a little bit off the map on the whole. I have a Twitter account. It's mainly about what I'm doing in terms of my writing. Outside of that, I exist completely off the map, and I don't really engage, and I kind of like it that way. I think it keeps my art kind of like, not original, but somehow it keeps it more me, you know, by doing that. So I like stepping away and not really keeping up. I like that kind of isolation that I have now. And as I said in that question earlier, I'm moving towards complete disappearance. And my first has been to just disengage a little bit from that culture until I can disappear altogether, which is my dream and goal, ultimately. Once I've done what I came to do, you know what I mean? And I feel I came to write these books, and I don't think it's over yet. Or the demons won't let me go yet. And I hope I get to the Rimbury point when I'm like, see you later.
Спасибо Дэвиду, извините, к сожалению.
Вопрос,
Совсем последний.
Да. А какие ваши отношения с традиционной музыкой? Я знаю, что в Шотландии сильны традиции именно в повседневной жизни, исполнения чего-либо.
Honestly, I love it, and I honestly think that all the music that I love is ultimately a folk music. It's a DIY music. Folk music's DIY music. True folk music is music made by communities, in the communities themselves, for the sort of reasons that the communities exist. And I think punk came out of that. I think rock and roll came out of that. I think all the culture that I love comes out of that. So ultimately, yes, the culture that I love and the music that I love is folk music, and I still do listen to a lot of it, and I still love it.
Спасибо, Дэвид.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Замечательно, что нам удалось с вами пообщаться, прежде чем вы исчезли.
Bye.
Спасибо. До новых встреч.
Друзья, большое спасибо, что пришли. Те, кто хотели бы остаться на следующем мероприятии, мы начнем минут через 5-7. Те, кто, к сожалению, хотели бы уже удалиться, прошу вас сдать оборудование для синхронного перевода в соседний зал. Спасибо большое.
So amazing speech. You are.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of great writers, but to be a great speaker is.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily a skill you should presume any writer would have, because that's what they do, you know. But I like it.
Yeah.
You know. Awesome, thanks so much again, man. That was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So, one more question, yeah.